Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where every week we bring you the news, information, and bills that are being presented in the House of Representatives. Today we are fortunate to have with us Vice Speaker John Mizuno, who represents District 28, Kalihi Valley, Kamehameha Heights, and portions of Lower Kalihi. Good morning, Vice Speaker, and thank you for being with us here today.
Good morning, James. Thank you for having us here.
Well, since this is the start of the 2020 legislative session, we want to talk a little bit about what people can expect and what's going to happen over here. But with the coronavirus still raging in the community, how has this affected the session? What has changed here with public safety and access? What's different this year?
Thank you for the question. Significantly different. In fact, the Capitol building is still closed to the public. In addition, we still have the hearings they have to go on and informational briefings. So the way we've done that, either to connect.
We're losing your vocals a little. Speak right into that computer.
Okay, I'll try to do a little better.
Yeah, it's better.
Thanks. It's changed a lot. What we're seeing is more people are getting the ability to participate in the legislative process. And I'll kind of expand upon that. Because of the pandemic, and we're doing a lot of virtual hearings or informational briefings, many of our constituents on the neighbor islands, for example, Maui, Kauai, Big Island, Molokai, Lanai, they're able to connect in with us and provide testimony, whereas prior to that, they would have to fly in if they wanted to give us live testimony on a specific bill or issue. Again, we've had a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of things that have been done virtual, but it's pretty efficient. It's one benefit that has come out of the unfortunate pandemic. As far as safety protocol, everyone's still masking and social distancing. On the floor, we have plexiglass. A number of safety measures have been taken to ensure us in the bubble at the Capitol are safe, and we're not going to have a super spreader event. Keep in mind that the Capitol has 500 people here. We've got senators, representatives, staff, sergeant at arms, clerk's office, police, sheriff. So the 500 people, we've been relatively safe with all of them. And I call it kind of like another bubble. But at this point, yeah, a lot of changes due to the pandemic.
Interesting. You've taken all these measures and it's actually increased access. It sounds sort of like you've made a lemonade out of this lemon here.
Right.
But this session, there's a lot of talk about the budget, and there's, healthcare obviously is on everyone's mind. What are the important bills that are coming out of that you expect to come out of this session?
Number of bills coming out. However, I think the three major areas we need to look at, and those bills will target those areas, would be number one, the budget deficit. We're now facing about a 1.7, 1.8 billion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're fading again. Stay close to that microphone.
I apologize. Yeah, I think the bills are targeted at three main issues. First of all, we're facing a $1.8 billion deficit. So that's number one. Bills are going to be targeted at trying to address that. Second, public health. Without addressing the coronavirus.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but it keeps losing your sound there. So.
Okay, I apologize. Public health is another issue. Unless we have proper public health and public safety for our people, it's going to be very difficult to reopen the economy. When I say public health, and let me say this, the governor, I'm sorry, not the governor, the state as a whole and government as a whole made a mistake when the pandemic first hit our state. We should have done COVID testing with robust contact tracing. Those two things to contain the virus, and we failed to do so early on. And I think government needs to step up and say, we should have done a better job. And I'm willing to take the hit for that too. But now it seems like we're in sync. We've got extreme testing for COVID. We've got robust contact tracing. Everything's on track. If anyone's positive, they're quarantined. In addition, we have thermal screening, PPEs for all of our healthcare workers. And now with the vaccine provides us hope. That's key. And that's why public health is so important. In addition, if we can go with the vaccines, we can start to reopen the economy. But again, we need to continue to do social distancing and masking up. We continue to do that and get our people vaccinated and get to herd immunity, which is about 75, 80% of the population. I think we're going to be okay, and we're going to get out of this most difficult recession we're in.
Yeah. Well, given that those primary concerns, what do you with we don't have as much money as usual. What are you hoping to accomplish this session? When we walk away from here, the end in April, what do you hope is going to be accomplished?
We're hoping to help our working families that have just been devastated by the pandemic. We're hoping to stabilize the economy and get us back in the right direction. And James, some of the ways we can do that would be, for example, we'll just give you a couple examples. Eliminate special funds, scoop the money, and then provide special funds.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more time, get close to that microphone.
I apologize. I'll give you a few examples of how we can shore up our economy. One example would be to eliminate special funds.
Oh, Representative, we've lost you again. I don't know what the technical difficulty is, but we're down to 1 minute if we can hear you for this last minute.
Right. At the end of the day, government needs to be decisive. We need to give people hope, and we need to make tough decisions. And I think we can accomplish that if we all coordinate together. Senate, House, work with the executive branch governor. If we can do this, then we can reopen our economy and put Hawaii back in a good light for business.
Yeah. So are you optimistic this is going to happen? Do you think we're going to work together well and get this done?
Yes, the vaccine offers the biggest hope for us. As long as we coordinate together, we need to make the tough decisions, and the public will not be happy with all decisions. But if we do this right, we can get us out of this difficult pandemic and help the economy recover for Hawaii.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vice Speaker John Mizuno. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but I think your message got across just fine.
Right. I apologize with the technical difficulties, but thanks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you again next week.
Interested in speaking up about which laws make sense for Hawaii? Want to really get active at the state legislature? Make sure that you've set up an account on the legislature's website, capitol.hawaii.gov. All that's required is an email address. Then you can receive email hearing notices for specific bills or for certain committees, or submit written testimony and sign up to testify remotely, or set up a measure tracking list to keep on top of bills you're interested in. Need help? Contact the Public Access Room at 808-587-0478 or par@capitol.hawaii.gov.
Five, four, three.
Aloha. As you can see, we're broadcasting today's program from my home in respect for the Shelter-in-Place Directive so that you can meet the people who continue to make a difference in our everyday lives.
And the winner is.
And the winner is.
And the winner is
Aloha, everyone, and welcome back to the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. Today, I'm joined by Senator Jarrett Keohokalole. Senator Keohokalole represents Senate District 24, which includes the areas of Kaneohe and Kailua. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Aloha. Good morning.
Morning. You know, this COVID-19 pandemic has really hit every community across our state. But Senator, what has the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic been for your district?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the job loss. We had just a lot of inquiries from members of the community trying to file for unemployment claims. Many of them were able to actually get paid out. Some are still having difficulty, which is going to be an issue that we need to deal with this year. But just the overwhelming number of people who filed for claims is the first thing that comes to mind. And then the other is just a general concern from constituents who have reached out to us for information and help getting tested, understanding where clusters are, understanding how travel is impacted, and just how to deal with the disease in general.
You know, during this past interim, the Senate created a special committee for COVID-19, and since March, this committee has been busy trying to help the state navigate through this pandemic. Of course, you are a member of that committee. Can you share some of the work that you folks worked on during this past interim?
Sure. You know, in hindsight, after doing it for 10 months, I think the main thing we were trying to accomplish on the Senate Special Committee on COVID-19 was increased communication with the public, because that really was an issue at different points of the pandemic. And then also pushing a sense of urgency in the administration so that we had clear action being taken on some of these items that the public really was demanding some answers on. So, for example, we initially called for the implementation of social distancing, for masks, for the mandatory quarantine, for better clarity on the plan to reopen schools in the summertime, and you know the response on testing and contact tracing, which ultimately led to the replacement of the chair of the Department of Health, and our visit to the Department of Health in August to identify whether their contact tracing operation actually could handle the surge that was taking place at that point. You know, the federal spend down of the federal CARES Act money, we really were involved in a lot, but it was mostly focused on making sure the state was moving with a sense of urgency to address the critical needs at any given point of the pandemic over last year.
Yeah, you know, so as we move forward with the vaccines of many across our state, you know, you've been the Senate's point person for many of these efforts. Can you talk about, you know, the state's vaccination rollout? I know later this afternoon, you and Representative Ichiyama will be hearing from the Department of Health on some of these matters. Are there any questions that you want them to answer, or is there any information that you are hoping to gain from this afternoon's hearing?
Yes. You know, this is the largest, I think it's fair to say that this is the single largest state government initiated public health action that we've ever had, trying to vaccinate 70% or more of our 1.4 million residents. We've done 7% of the population to date. Over 100,000 individuals have received at least one dose of vaccination. It is a really monumental task, logistically, strategically, to make sure that there is enough healthcare capacity out in the community for folks to come and get a shot, that we are able to coordinate with teams to go out to places like the care homes or the small nursing homes, so that folks who are not mobile but are at highest risk can still receive the vaccine. And then also make sure that we have clear communication to the larger community as to when their turn is, whether they can go as a caregiver, what essential workers mean, what that actual designation means, and then how much vaccine we're getting at any given point, and whether it's being distributed effectively. So that's the main thing we want to discuss today is who's up in the queue right now, specifically, how things are going on the different islands, because the vaccine administration just is different by island. Some communities are much smaller and more difficult to get to and have less capacity, healthcare workers there to monitor individuals who get the vaccine to make sure they don't have allergic reactions versus, in Honolulu, where you just have massive demand and it's more of a logistical concern to make sure you're feeding everybody through safely. And we don't have these long lines like you've seen in Florida and other states, on the news. So, my main prerogative as the chair of the Senate Health Committee has been to make sure and push the department to put out communication to the public to make sure that there's a good understanding of what's happening and where we are on the vaccine at any given point. Ultimately, it's a function of supply. We just don't have all the vaccines we wish we had, and that we could actually deliver if we did have them in hand. So we got to continue to have that dialogue with the public so that they understand what's going on and can come and get it when it's ready.
Earlier this week, members of the Senate Special Committee on COVID-19 visited the pod, or the point of distribution at Pier 2, and the members were able to see, how massive of a operation these pods are. You were at that site visit. What were your thoughts of seeing the operations firsthand at the Pier 2?
I thought it was great. I was particularly grateful to the healthcare community. HPH and Queens, all of the healthcare community, private community, has really stepped up, taking the responsibility on themselves, put in their own money and their own people to make this happen, because there's a general recognition that we are one community, we got to work together. And there's an incentive. The fact that we can get so many people vaccinated at those large sites that Queens and HPH are operating means we're going to have better outcomes. We're going to have less kupuna who are at risk and who will ultimately end up getting sick, going in the hospital and dying if we can get those shots in arms as soon as the vaccine comes off the boat. And really, we do need them. We need the private sector to do this, because we're just not equipped to handle the largest public health operation in state history. So it was really encouraging. It was very meticulous. They put a lot of work into it. It's continually changing so that it can meet the needs of the public. And so I was encouraged.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for joining us this week. And we will see you next week on the Senate segment of Live at the Legislature. Mahalo.
To bring you into the Capitol this session, all the hearings and briefings are being live streamed on YouTube. You can watch them in real time or catch up on them later when it works for you. Find the House and Senate YouTube links on the new Live and Demand video page. Just go to the legislature's website and click on the Live and On Demand video button and see for yourself. Need help keeping up with what's happening at the Capitol? Contact the Public Access Room for more tips.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record Live at the Legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
The Public Access Room has some great handouts to help you make sense of the deadlines that govern the action here at the Capitol. In addition to our color-coded session calendar, our Which Deadlines Apply to My Bill document can help to keep you sane. It's a handy chart that helps you find which deadlines you need to focus on for a specific bill, depending on the number of committee referrals it's received. Find these handouts and more under the Current Legislature tab on our website, and call or email us if you'd like help.
Aloha and welcome back to the House Minority segment of Live at the Legislature. I'm Kaeo, your host for the House Minority. And today joining us is the ever illustrious Representative Gene Ward. He represents Hawaii Kai to Kalama Valley and serves as a member of the House Pandemic Preparedness or Assistance or Disaster Preparedness Committee.
One of those.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Kyle. Good morning, and thank you, Alelo, for getting up early and slating us, putting us right front and center in front of the people, live as it is. You froze. Your face is frozen.
Can you see me, Rep. Ward? Can you hear
Okay,
me?
now I can see you. I can see you and hear it. It's just kind of like the Mizuno thing. Alelo, you guys got anything against the House? The Senate went perfect, and now the House is scuttling itself. Okay.
It might be, this was probably a good segue into my first question. So yesterday we had the State of the State, and Governor Ige had mentioned the future of a digital economy, of a state, sort of a state broadband and a department that would help with digital equity, he said. So did you have any thoughts after the speech, specifically with the digital economy proposition?
A very important question. Thank you for that, Kaio, because I had a before and after. The before was, and I think it's the way the senator and Mizuno tried to do, where we show there's light at the end of the tunnel. I wanted to see timelines and hope. I commend the governor. He used the word hope 5 times, 4 times in the beginning, 1 at the end. Because if people don't have hope that we're going to get through the pandemic, that we're going to open the economy, that we're going to throw a lifeline to the small businesses, and we're going to balance the budget, it's like, what are you guys doing there? So I thought he was going to be like a coach at halftime, where he kind of pumps them up and says, look, you guys did this right, you did that wrong, and we've got to go and we got to do a better job. You do this, that, and the other thing. And one of the things that came out, specific to your question, is let's get Hawaii into the digital economy. That's something that my office has tried to do for many, many years. I tried to get the Silicon Valley guys to relocate here and do long distance out of the San Francisco and the portal there in Silicon Valley. But that didn't seem to work. And there was one other hang up to what the governor was saying. And that's when President Lasner of the University of Hawaii was the head of the broadband task force a number of years ago, of which I was a member. And the problem, Kaio, and those listening, is that we don't have the infrastructure. And there was not a willingness on Hawaiian Tel or the cable companies, Spectrum, I think it was before Spectrum, they didn't want to invest the money. And President Lasner basically said, you know why Korea is 5-6 times faster than us? Is because they have government investment in putting in these infrastructure pieces. Since then, wireless technology has gained preeminence, and it's cheaper, but it's still expensive. So we still don't even have the coverage. If you're living in certain parts of the state, you don't really get the advantage of what the governor is talking about. So it's a good turn, but we've got to commit ourselves to diversification of the economy. And you know, I've been talking about Hollywood of the Pacific. It's a natural $1 billion thing of which pays high-paying wages, and we just kind of sat on our hands. So I hope the governor does something other than put it out there and then just let it rest and get dust on the shelves.
Is now the time to invest in that, Rep. Ward? Is it a better use of money than filling the capital pools, perhaps?
Oh, good question. The capital pool is 30. For those of you listening who wake up to hear Live at the Legend, I don't know how many there are, and maybe Stanford will tell us someday. $30 million to fill in the pool, which since it was built in 1969, has been a thorn in the side in the budget of the state of Hawaii. That pool smells and is often rancid growing weeds, and we're going to put $30 million in it. Because specific to your question, do we have the money to build infrastructure in the digital economy? The problem is we have not heard the hope of how we're going to fill the budget. I think Representative Mizuno earlier was trying to say that, we're going to take away special funds, we're going to not fill positions that are empty, and positions that are empty we're not going to fill, or for those who retire. We've got the rainy day fund. We should know specifically what we're going to do, and when there are timelines to say, we're going to get out of this in 3 or 4 years, because we've got about $1.5 billion per year for 4 years that we know of. So any money this session, we're going to be tighter than a screw on a rusty ship to get money out of the legislature. Now, I'm not talking to you, if you're a lobbyist or whatever, maybe Live at the Ledge gets all of those with self-interest watches. It's going to be tight, and money is going to be really, really scarce. And I'm hoping that we can get the economy moving, because if we don't open the economy, we're dead in the water. And we are now dead in the water with the highest unemployment and the highest level. In fact, we don't even have the unemployment insurance position out there that we should. We should have we're still getting, we're still getting calls. I haven't got my UI yet. That's really, really embarrassing. But my point is, let me just not say we got to open the economy. Here's how we should open the economy. It's called TV. It's called testing and vaccinations. Testing is what we've got with Oceanit, what we've got with a 10-minute test for $20. We start doing bubble testing, for example, in the school, so the kids can go to school and they're not afraid the teacher's going to give it to them. The teacher's not afraid the kids are going to give it to them. But we vaccinate those guys. And it's not rocket science that eventually you cordon off and you push this pandemic on the ash heap of history. Until people are secure going to work and they know they're safe through testing and vaccinations, we're going to be twisting around and explaining, and then we go back and we change the rules. Oh, you're tier 1 now. No, you're tier 2. People are getting fed up. They want to get back to normal. And that's what we got to do during this session, Kyle.
And we got about 2 minutes left. So on the topic of diversifying the economy, you've said previously that we've been, living off our good looks for too long. Is there anything?
We're still using our brains. Exactly. Living off our good looks, we got to use our brains now. And that's what I commend the governor for saying, let's get digital. But let's get smart with our we could be the Hollywood of the Pacific. It's potentially $1 billion industry. And we're sitting on our hands saying, well, we're going to let Georgia and Kentucky outbid us because we don't want to give up any money. Well, for every dollar we spend for those guys, we get about $4 back. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to know that that's a strategic advantage. The point is, we got to grow the pie. Right now, everybody's mind in the legislature, we got to cut the pie up in smaller pieces. You don't get any, you get some. We got to grow the pie, which means diversification, economic development, and entrepreneurial thinking. Like stadium, we got to get naming right so we can get 40 to 60, $100 million. We're not on our toes in terms of business savvy.
And so last question for about the last minute we have. Civil Beat published an article about the Progressive Caucus, and I believe the guest on our last segment is a member of that. So do you foresee the Progressive Caucus having a big influence this year, or should the establishment Dems feel threatened by this new wave?
You saved the Tabasco question, the chili pepper one for last. If I can make some summary statements, to me, socialism and what drift that the progressives are going in is basically Marxism with lipstick on it. That is the existential threat, I think, of American democracy. Giving power from the people to the government. People kind of forget our beginnings, that we are individuals. We're not the collective government run. And if you look at the history of socialism, and look, I'm not saying you guys got to read it, but if you look what happened with Yugoslavia and how the special class, the new class, was those who run the government are the ones who get all the privileges. So for those of you who want to get, and there's a bill right now for $27 for minimum wage. Well, this is some of the mindset of some of these guys. Some people should listen to this. You want to get a minimum wage of $27? Okay, knock out all the small businesses that are already trying to survive. That is how dangerous some of this stuff is. But hopefully these younger progressives can realize and reason that, hey, what's best for the state of Hawaii is not just their ideology. We've got a better and a bigger purpose than just theirs.
Well, we've got a lot of weeks to in this marketplace of ideas. So, Representative Ward, thank you for joining us this week, and thanks again to the staff at Olelo for organizing all this. For the folks at home, we will see you next week. Aloha.
Thank you and aloha.